this module, we will discuss about the energy crisis in contemporary world. What do we mean by this? Energy has multiple crisis issues related to environment, related to socio-economic issues, etc. But in this module, we will mostly include the contemporary aspects of the difficulties due to the energy supply chain and how the society in general is getting affected due to lack of possible energy supply in an uniform way to the all parts of the people. Now, from this perspective, our discussion will mostly focus on how the energy has become not only an integrated part of the civilization, but also how the lack of assured and regular energy supply at an affordable cost creates a lot of socio-economic challenges. From that perspective, our discussion will include certain aspects. First, we will discuss about the evaluation of the global energy sector. Means, starting from the primitive age, how this energy sector has become most critical for the civilization and how that issue has taken care of the different aspects of social development. Then we will discuss the associated crisis aspect. Undoubtedly, this crisis is multidimensional. During discussion, we will see that the challenge due to this crisis will come from different aspects and they may be conflicting, they may be accelerating one another and so on. So, we will discuss this associated crisis in this module in detail. Then we will have the very recent major sources of this crisis. Why this is important? This has got a specific significance. What happens actually? The energy supply with assured quality and affordability is not always affected due to only the technological challenges. There are many issues related to the assured energy supply with respect to the conflicts, socio-economic issues and the people's acceptance too. So, the two major issues we will at least identify what has created very serious problem with respect to the assured energy supply chain. And then we will have the effects due to that. That means what has happened in consequences. Because if the energy supply is not quite assured at affordable cost, then what will happen? Automatically there will be some very serious socio-economic effect and some issues will come up which may affect subsequently further development in different aspects. We will have certain discussions on those issues too. Then finally, we will try to find out some mitigation strategies as these are visible. Not necessarily all these mitigation strategies may work simultaneously to improve this particular process of or rather the crisis to mitigate, but maybe with a priority we have to decide as much as possible to implement these mitigation strategies at global and at local levels. So let's see how it happens. So in this picture we are showing a primitive person is igniting fire. Yes, this is the first step for using fuel energy into the useful form. No doubt, lighting of fire is the beginning of fuel energy use. So, with this subsequently, we have the so-called power generation. From the majority of this power generation is from the large coal-based power plants. Why we are considering this? Because later on, electricity has been found to be the most useful form and convenient form of energy, especially for the large scale application. This has happened because electricity can be transported over a long distance transmission, what is called the electric transmission, with a very little loss. And the control of the electric power is relatively much more precise. So, on the basis of that, the production of electricity has become the backbone of the modern civilization. So, starting from the igniting of fire, finally reaching up to the electricity supply, assured electricity supply, is the transformation of the energy sector. So, if we have to discuss with respect to the current energy crisis or energy crisis of the contemporary world, the major issue related to that will be the assured fuel supply related to conversion of fossil fuels to electricity, and if we can have some alternative source of energy resources apart from fossil fuel, that will be even better. But remember that though the clean and green energy is desired in a longer run, the assured supply of energy is the most important aspect of the current world. Because if the energy supply is not assured, then the people will have not only their retarded economic growth, but also the normal activities will be affected. And that's why the fuel supply must be assured according to conventional electricity generation process too, in addition to the development of the so-called clean and green energies. Now, the energy crisis as a multi-dimensional global problem, let's identify those issues one by one for better understanding of this subject. First is the population growth and the associated energy demand. All of us know that the population will increase, and with this increasing population, automatically the energy demand will also increase. Though the population growth rate at every part of the world is not uniform, but as a global scenario of the energy demand, it will increase. Also, no doubt, the per capita energy consumption is not same at every location of the world, but still, with increasing population globally, there is a possibility of assured increase of the energy demand. The second issue will be the living standard. We loosely say that per capita energy consumption is sometimes considered as the living standard of the people of a country. Though with the introduction of the concept of energy efficiency and energy conservation, this definition is no longer valid, but we know that majority of the modern civilization applications and devices are running with electricity. So obviously, the electricity consumption per capita is an indicator of the advanced living standard of the people. And as the people in general are always aspiring for better living standard, energy demand will automatically increase over the ages. So, population growth and the better living standard both will contribute to the more demand of energy supply. Then we will concentrate on the issue of the climate change and the new energy technologies. We are now going through a transition phase. That's we called global energy transition. Because starting from the industrial revolution period, we have mostly dependent on fossil fuel based energy generation. And as a consequence, unknowingly in those periods, we have added much of greenhouse gas to the atmosphere, which have created the climate change problem. And now, after realizing this, we are trying to revert it. Revert in what sense? Our new technologies, if they go on generating electricity at the same pace with generating those carbon emissions, we will not be able to survive. So, we have to develop technologies which will be lesser greenhouse gas emission related. And in that case, what will happen? There will be a transition between the older infrastructure and newer infrastructure. Means the existing infrastructure which has got a capital locked in those infrastructures are fossil fuel based systems. And simultaneously, we are going to introduce new renewable energy based systems or green energy based systems which will be depending on new installation of infrastructures. Now, the tussle between the balance of the older infrastructure and new green energy infrastructure will create certain energy crisis issues in the contemporary world. Now, the renewable energy increase is another accepted principle for future survival. It is not due to the environment friendliness only. All of us know that though fossil fuels have created a lot of support, or rather given a lot of support for our current civilization to come into the current status, but simultaneously it has created some problem with respect to environment, and moreover these fossil fuel reserves are limited. So what will happen then? If we go on using these fossil fuels indiscriminately, then after certain time these will be completely consumed, and these fossil fuels cannot be created by at least human being in the earth in their any artificial way, at least till not known. Now, what will happen actually? Initially, oil will be completely exhausted, and then coal will last for the longest period. Gas will also be exhausted after the oil. Then automatically, we are not only interested with renewable energy for the environment friendliness, but also the limited resources of the fossil fuels has to be compensated with some alternative technologies that should come from the renewable energy only. Now think of this situation. Nuclear can also be another options which we will have little bit discussion, but majority of people do not have social acceptance with respect to that particular risk of the nuclear hazards. Now, the renewable introduction will create certain problems with respect to the existing grid-based electrical power, because most of the renewable energies, say solar, wind, has a variable generation depending on the weather condition. So with this variable generation, the grid connections may become difficult for these renewable energies. So modern micro smart grids and the off-grid hybrid distribution mode may come into picture with more renewable energy introduction. Lesser investment is available now for the fossil fuel based exploration infrastructure. What do you mean? You know that business investment is always available more if it has got more potential of generating revenue. Unfortunately, as the fossil fuels have been declared that in future we will completely stop using as early as possible, then the exploration of new fossil fuels infrastructure is getting lesser and lesser importance. And so, further explorations of fossil fuels has become less interesting for the business investment. That will create a resource crunch with respect to the fossil fuel based energy generation, and that may affect in the future energy capacity as it is required with population growth and higher living standard. Then uneven distribution of oil and gas is another major crisis of the current world. We know that the coal is more uniformly distributed in many countries in the world. That's why the lesser conflict geopolitical conflict exists related to coal. But oil, unfortunately, and to some extent gas, is restricted within certain countries only. And there is one important issue arising because those countries' reserve is basically controlled not only according to the available reserve but also some socio-political or geopolitical issues, sometimes creating that artificial crisis. We will discuss about that. Then another crisis is important is the geopolitical crisis as that is coming out of the previous points. For example, once the artificial crisis is created due to in the supply chain due to political issues, say associated with war or some diplomatic other issues, then the problem is the supply chain is not affected due to the global reserve but also due to some other reasons which create a severe energy crisis. Then we have got the widely varying global economic growth. This also creates a problem. In a sense, the different countries in the world is not developing economically at same pace, and there is a large difference of the economic level or rather the economic standard of different countries. So some of the countries are consuming much of energy per capita and the other countries have very minimum supply of energy per capita. This what makes the difference is the living standard, and sometimes it happens the supply to the poorer countries gets affected due to certain need or defined greed of the advanced countries. Then geopolitical conflicts over critical minerals is emerging to be a very serious issue as the contemporary world energy crisis. With the development of new technologies, say renewable technology and associated storage technology, certain minerals are becoming very much important because assured supply of those minerals will be required for successful implementations of these technologies. For example, all of us know that lithium-based storage systems is emerging as future great option for the large-scale energy storage. Unfortunately, if the lithium's supply is not assured globally to many countries, then this particular technology development, though known how to make these systems, may not be possible to be implemented in real life due to the lack of supply chain of these critical minerals. Say the rare earth elements are mostly included in these and some more are there. Future conflicts will automatically evolve due to the supply chain disruption of these critical minerals and the path of the energy crisis. Now, the recent two issues we will highlight in this discussion. Two major issues have affected the contemporary world energy crisis to a great extent. The first one is the global pandemic. All of us are aware that this particular global pandemic has created almost standstill with respect to the industrial life, and the energy generation has got affected substantially during this period. So undoubtedly it has got a strong effect on the contemporary world energy crisis. Another issue is the more recent is the Russia-Ukraine war, because this particular war has not only affected the two countries but also there are certain global effect due to this conflict between these two countries on the energy supply chain, because Russia contains lot of oil and gas, and interestingly this supply chain or export of this oil and gas has got affected and some artificial crisis have been created in the energy market due to this conflict, not due to the reservation or rather the limitations of the energy reserve. Now, what has happened for the global pandemic if we explain little bit more, the extraordinary rapid economic rebound effect has followed the global pandemic. But unfortunately, the energy supply chain was not ready for that. So, the rate of demand of the energy supply after the pandemic could not be compensated with generation as required. So, automatically there was a supply and demand gap after the pandemic, and that is undoubtedly a great energy crisis issue has been created in contemporary world. Poor maintenance of the infrastructure, then subsequently slower recovery of that has affected during the pandemic period or post pandemic. Supply chain disruption and slower recovery then of it can demand and growth has created that particular problem after the pandemic. Russia-Ukraine war, on the other hand, Russia attacked the Ukraine in February 2022, and most of the European Union countries were at that time dependent on the supply of natural gas for their power generation. And Russia has stopped to many of those. Then what has happened? Due to this war, indirectly, the European communities have got affected due to their energy crisis. And undoubtedly, this artificial crisis creation has affected lots of European economic growth. So, replacement effort has automatically started. In a demand and supply equation, always it happens whenever there is demand and there is a supply chain disruption, alternative routes will automatically start emerging. Out of that, the liquefied natural gas was not earlier considered very much preferred choice for the power generation because large scale fuel supply is required. Unfortunately, due to this artificial created during the Ukraine-Russia war, the people have started thinking of ship-borne liquefied natural gas or LNG supply. And this has created some shift from the traditional gas-based power generation into some LNG-based power generation, which has affected the cost of power generation too. Then the follow-up crisis out of this Russia-Ukraine war is the oil price increase, and the oil price increase and the climate policies and the new energy options has emerged out of these two recent major crises. Oil price has increased from Russia, oil price has increased from other countries too, not only due to artificial price increase, but also rerouting of export of these oil, because there are some business transportation route of oil in particular way in the sea, but that has to be rerouted after this war to make this supply possible, and that has increased the oil price also. Climate policies and new energy options. Climate policies are always moving towards low carbon path. Unfortunately, due to the crisis of energy supply, there was some of the countries has adopted new policies which may not give the low carbon path as the topmost priority. Because all of us know that we can go for affording for the low carbon energy generation if and only if we can have our assured supply. But if the supply, minimum required supply is affected, then automatically the climate policies will become not a very priority issue. And that has happened as a major recent energy crisis. Also, the renewables, as they appear as the future possible solution, then alternative energy path has also given a more thrust, because these are not fossil fuel dependent and renewable resources are available to almost all countries, but in different forms. Then energy efficiency measure or mission has also got special importance due to this present crisis. This is similar to the oil shock during the 1970s, where Europe realized that the oil crisis is not due to the global oil reserve, but it was due to the political war between the Arab world and the Israel. Similar concepts are coming up with the current situation. The nuclear power has got rather lesser acceptance from the people in general due to the accidents possibility and the hazards. But currently, with this energy crisis, people have started thinking, giving special weightage to nuclear power generation too. Then, visible strategies what can be to solve this problem? Accelerating renewable energy transition, and that means as much as possible if we can make the renewable world accepted, and but that needs a technology development and simultaneously government policies to accept those. Enhancing energy efficiency and conservation, this is considered to be very important measure, because saving energy through energy efficiency and conservation means we need not to generate that much energy at all. So what will happen then? In that case, this is 100% contributing towards lesser energy generation. People have started thinking with the current crisis, as much as possible the energy efficiency and conservation should be increased with innovative measures. And then developing energy storage and modern grids is another important challenge according to the modern energy crisis. This is important because with more renewable integration, this modern grids will be required. And moreover, the energy storage, due to the intermittency of the most of the renewable supply, will play a critical role. So, as a part of the mitigation strategy, we have to give much more weightage on these two issues of energy storage and the modern grids development. And then finally, policy framework and international cooperation is the most important part. Unless we cannot think the entire world as a single entity, as one earth, and go for the mutual international collaborations for well-being of global entity as a whole, it will be difficult to address this current energy crisis. Thank you.